Hi guys, it's Blackie.
Amber.
And this is always number 29?
29.
29. My God, where time goes when you're having fun.
I don't know if you realize this or not,
Yeah.
but we've been doing this more than a year.
A year we've been doing it.
We started doing it the third weekend of April last year. Because that was the weekend of our family reunion.
Right.
We did it on Friday before the reunion, or
Yeah.
Thursday before the reunion. And we've already had our reunion for this year, so we've come through a year and then some.
Yep. And we're at 26, so right now,
29.
if you did 29, so it's over half a year to watch one a week. So when we get to 365, you can watch them one a day.
One a day.
But this time, guys, it's here. It's actually decent weather, which is unusual for this late in May down here in my south. And they're predicting an El Nino, which is good for us because typically what happens is it'll be warm and kind of steamy and muggy in the morning, and then it'll cloud up and rain about 1 or 2. And that keeps our temperatures down where it only gets up into the 90s instead of into the hundreds. And I ain't going to argue. It usually means that it's late August before we get those dog days of just 100 degrees. So I'm not going to complain about it.
No. Back when we were kids, there was this thing called the croup. And what it was a very bad asthma attack, I think. I've never found a good definition for it. If anybody has one, drop it in the comments. But he and I have had croup more times than we even care to admit.
Yeah.
Which has made us susceptible to pneumonia more
Yeah.
times than we can admit. And that breathing your air sucks.
Yeah, because a lot of it was, one, we would go from relatively dry air to suddenly just high humidity.
Let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
Breathing your air does not suck. It's a very good thing to breathe. Having to breathe water
Yeah.
sucks.
70, 80, 90% humidity, and a lot of times if it's going to rain, it's 100% humidity. And so you're breathing, you can feel the air going in and out of your lungs. And all that pollen is going in and out of your lungs. Every time you blow your nose, it's bright yellow from all the pollen coming out of your lungs. So that was a lot of the croup, was the fact you get a lung infection from all the pollen and the stuff in the air and the heat.
Yeah.
And so it just, and then you get that that cough like that.
It's breathing mud is not a fun thing.
No.
You get the pollen and the moisture and it's just mud.
You get in a shower and get a hot shower going, and you go to hocking up stuff.
Oh yeah.
Because you'd be clearing your lungs. You know, and a lot of our grandmothers and mothers and stuff, remember, they'd be in the kitchen cooking. There'd be all these pots with steam going off of them, the humidity would go up in the kitchen, and they'd go to hacking and coughing.
Well, that was the treatment for croup around my house.
Steam.
You put Vic Salve in water. You let it melt in the water, and then you take the kid and you put him over the boiling water, the hot water and the steam. Throw a blanket over him. And let him breathe that menthol out of that Vic Salve.
And hack and cough and gag until you cleared your lungs out. Which
Jimmy took about 2 days.
I remember, like I pointed out, whenever we had a cold or whatever, we got that where you just couldn't breathe. It's all just plugged up. My grandmother would go and reach to the back of the refrigerator and pull out that small mason jar with that atomic grade horseradish. And she'd go get a roll of toilet paper. We didn't have no Kleenex. You know, you had toilet paper.
Right.
And she'd sit it down and she'd take a Ritz cracker or a saltine cracker or bread if we didn't have nothing else, and she'd smear it on it and she'd hand it to you and say, eat it. And you'd eat it, and by the third cracker, either the dam broke or your head was going to explode. And suddenly it was just running, boy, and you'd go to blowing your nose and blowing your nose until you could breathe. But by God, horseradish would open it up. But oh, did it burn.
I thought she was going to make a poultice.
No, you just eat the horseradish on them crackers, and it was so strong. Now, my granddaddy wouldn't eat horseradish, but he'd eat hot peppers that were so hot they would make him sweat and blow.
Was that the peppers that he had the secret for growing?
Yeah.
They were medicinal peppers as well as
Oh
food.
yeah. He made pepper sauce, he made a hot sauce, and then he made almost like a chow. But that was the medicinal one. That was for people that had chest cold or whatever, and you take a teaspoon of that and it would burn you to your foot, boy. But he said it'll burn it out of you. It'll burn it out of you.
How many times as a kid growing up did you hear folks talk about mustard poultice?
Oh God, yes. Mustard poultices and everything else. If you got a burn, they'd put French mustard on it. That was burn cream. Oh yeah, kitchen medic. Oh boy.
That sounds like an old Wayz 30.
Oh yeah, I remember my aunt. She was up in years and her lungs had got kind of bad. And she had showed up and wanted her sister, my grandmother, wanted to know if she still had any of Arthur's Burn It Out, which was that pepper stuff. And she still had a couple little jars of it, and she took about a half teaspoon of that and shoved it in her mouth and just threw it down and took a bush rag and held it in her mouth so she wouldn't spit it out because she knew it was so bad. And I can still see her turn beet red. She was pale as a sheet anyway. She never went outside. And she turned beet red in 90 seconds. Sweat was boiling out of her. And my grandmother was telling her, you know, Victoria, chew. You got to chew it. Come on, start chewing. And she'd be shaking her head. And it was a fight. I mean, she'd gulp air through her nose. And whenever she finally couldn't take it anymore, she'd spit it out, and she went to choking and gagging and hacking, and Granny just handed her a bucket with a bag in it, thinking she's going to throw up. She didn't throw up, but she could breathe whenever she left, and she didn't want to take that treatment twice any time close, you know.
Yep.
But what we want to talk about in this one is
We digress.
We digress. As you can see, we got a case of MREs up here. I went down to the Kaufman's place, and they've got these cases of MREs for 40 bucks, and it's got 16 meals in it. So that,
cheaper than going fast food.
yeah. And so what we're talking about is what I utilize MREs for is I try to keep a case like this, like I've used up mine. I'm going to have my case sitting there, and I put a date on it. And I go ahead and research and find out when it's supposed to go out of date. Okay? It'll go past that, but you know what I mean. And so this is going to be camping food for me. I will stick one of these into my rucksack or into my haversack if I'm going to be gone all day as an emergency food. Being hypo, I need to eat. So this becomes an emergency meal that I can carry. Should the world go sideways, because I can function very well with very little food because I've had to do that so much in my life. I've trained my body how to fast. I can live off of one of these per day. I won't be happy, but I can guarantee myself one of these a day and then forage for whatever else I can find to supplement it. So one $40 box is a half a month worth of food for me as emergency rations. Of course, I'm also going to try to hunt, fish, trap, etc. But guaranteed I got one a day is going to keep me from starving. On the other hand, it tells you that you're supposed to eat 2 a day to maintain your calorie content for the average person. But it's got all the stuff in it, and I really like it because down here in our summer, whenever it's so hot, you don't want to eat hot food. It raises your core temperature up too much. And so I want cool food and stuff like that. So a lot of times we're going to be out. Lunch is going to be something like tuna and crackers, or cheese and crackers, or spam, Vienna sausage, something that's not hot because it's hot during the day. So I want something cool to drink and lukewarm at best food. At night, if I'm going to have a warm meal, because I'm going to eat it after the sun goes down, everything's cooled off, that's when I'd want to heat a meal or something like that.
Also at breakfast.
Breakfast.
You know, if you got to have your coffee, breakfast is the time to do that. Lunch is not.
Yeah. Do it in the morning to warm you up, get you going. It's the coolest part of the day.
Yeah.
So go ahead, if you have to have a hot coffee, do it then, absolutely. But later in the day, if you want coffee, make it kind of lukewarm, you know, because if it's that hot, you're raising your core temperature, and everybody says, oh, it cools you off. No, it doesn't. It makes you sweat like a pig, which dehydrates you faster.
You can also drink it cold.
Yeah, to be honest, I like cold coffee better than I do hot coffee. And my wife and I get the liquid out of the case, the cold chilled coffee, and keep it in the fridge, and a lot of mornings I just pour that. I want the caffeine, but I don't want the heat.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I don't drink coffee in the morning is when I was a little kid, I was just so scrawny. And my stepmother was bound and determined to try to fatten me up. So every morning, when I'd get up for school, she'd fix me this breakfast that a grown man couldn't eat. And here I was, 4'8", and I weighed like 69 pounds. And she wants me to eat 3 eggs, 2 pieces of toast, 4 pieces of bacon, or sausage. I threw up every morning. I'd eat, and on the way to the school bus, I'd throw up because I couldn't take that hot, heavy food on my stomach. And after 2 years of that, it got me where I didn't want anything hot in the morning. Even on cold mornings, I get up and it's 20 degrees. I'm not the one running for coffee, if I drink or eat something hot right off the bat, it's going to make me nauseous. And so that's one reason I never became a coffee drinker.
That's a good reason not to.
Yeah, not a good idea. So I'll typically have a cool breakfast of some kind. Even if I go and you see me make oatmeal, I'll make it and I'll let it cool off. Then I'll eat it. I don't like hot stuff in the morning.
That's another thing. If you have packages of oatmeal or quick grits or something like that, that's a very good start to your day. That's the kind of stuff that you're going to eat hot to warm, and you do not want to raise your core temperature too high too fast for exactly the reason he's talking about. But it's to me, he is too. We're old school. You want to start off the day with energy.
Yeah.
You don't want to just rush into the day with an empty gas tank. And to me, breakfast is the most important meal of the day. I can go without lunch. That's not a problem. But I want something at the beginning and at the end for certain.
Where I can go without breakfast, but I'm going to need a lunch. I'll get up and run 4 or 5 hours, but when I get that hungry, then I need to eat. And then we both agree on the supper meal doesn't have to be as big and heavy because I'm going to be going to bed. But one of the things about this, what he just brought up, I don't use the FRHs much. I do like them, especially if they work, they're not old, because it is handy to have them when you're going to have rain or something. I can't get out and build a fire and heat something. Being able to be up under a tarp and put water with this and heat it up is handy. But one of the things I like to do with mine is like this. You can see it sealed up in this clear pouch. It's got a peelable seal. I like to go ahead and peel it open and field strip this. And I will take out the stuff that I'm not going to use, like the cardboard sleeve and the FRH, let's say. And that'd be a good opportunity for me to add like a package of grits or a package of oatmeal. Or I don't care anything about the chewing gum. I'll get rid of that. I'll substitute in a couple of little items, and that allows me to go buy a pack of grits or pack of oatmeal and add one of those in here, because I know I'm going to eat that, my favorite flavor. And then once I get it in there, what I'm going to do, because all this stuff is individually packaged, this bag is really just to gather it and someplace to put the garbage. So once I put what I want back in here, then I'm going to fold this down and put a little dab of duct tape right there to hold it. So fold it once or twice to seal it up. And then just put a piece of duct tape right across there and seal it up and make it where I can peel that duct tape off. Well, the duct tape is a source of repair. B, it's a source of fire. 3, it's a source of, I can use it for an emergency wound dressing. It's already laid out on here. I can pull it off, put it fat, and have it already pre-made where I can stick it on me every section that long. I've used that. And when I get done with it and I put all my garbage back in here, I can fold this back up, and that's my garbage bag to haul back out.
I have, I think, 3 of these things in my bag I keep in my truck at work. I have been called out once, maybe twice, in situations where I was out in the field for hours. And I learned a long time ago to keep extra water and extra food in your kit,
Just in case.
because my kit doubles as a get-home bag, but I can, I have those, if I have to walk home, of course I work locally, so it wouldn't be much of a hump. But I could do this, and if I have to spend the night, okay, I'll spend the night. I've got a raincoat, and I've got this, and I've also got a fire starting mechanism.
Always have the ability to make fire on you.
This rides with me 24/7, 365.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a Exotac
Lighter cover.
lighter cover.
And the thing about it is, I keep in my vehicle, I've got a Ranger roll, and I talked about in one video about how a Ranger roll is the best thing to keep in a vehicle because it gives me multiple shelter options, multiple use options. And I use an old beat up poncho for the other thing that's got duct tape all over it. It will still work as a poncho, but it's not first line anymore.
No.
Because if I come across a car accident, or somebody that's with me gets injured real bad, I can take the Wooby poncho liner on that if they're trying to go into shock and cover them up. If there's someplace where it's pouring rain and they're hurt, I can set up a real quick shelter or whatever. And if they end up having to bleed, puke, poop, whatever, all over it, it is disposable to me at that point. So when I turn it into a Ranger roll, it's disposable. You know, if I have to sacrifice something, this is what I can grab to use. If I have, I had to sacrifice a poncho liner one time because there was this calf that had got out in the road and got hit. It was dead, but it's in the road, you know, and where this little hump was, when you top that hill, there it was. And it's going to cause a wreck. And so I could not, because the way the animal was, he was just too rough coated, he wouldn't slide. So me and the guy that stopped, we threw down that poncho liner and we rolled him over onto it, and now it was slick enough we could drag it.
Yeah.
If we tried dragging in that carcass, we couldn't move it hardly. But once we got it on that slick nylon, it would slide on that asphalt. We were able to pull him down here in the ditch and start hunting the landowner with this cow patch. So you got a calf dead down here. But it's blood and guts all over it. I'm not coming back for it. It's sacrificable.
Oh, come on, Blackie.
No, I mean, it's one of the things, I've been at too many accidents. I've seen accident scenes where people are bleeding, hurt, sick, throwing up, being able to come up and comfort somebody who's going into shock and have a blanket put around him. There's somebody, I'm not going to name them, but they're a EMT, and they work up in the mountain area of Kentucky. And they got called to a thing, and it was a family member of theirs. When they got the call and they got down there and they found it's a young family member of theirs, and the person was going into shock, and they turned around and they had all their medical kit and didn't have a single blanket, didn't have nothing to wrap around the person. The person's shaking like crazy, it feels so cold. And they went and put, the thing they put out said, I will from now on carry some sort of disposable blanket or something. Go down to the Harbor Freight and pick up them moving blankets if nothing else, because it needs to be something I can sacrifice if I have to, you know. Not something I want to, but I'd rather sacrifice a $10 used poncho with all kinds of duct tape over it than a $49 brand new one.
Yes.
That I'm going to get several years of use out of. So I look at that, like we're talking about the meals and stuff like that. I can go without eating, so I carry them in my vehicle with my Ranger roll. I've got at least 2 days worth of food and at least a full day's worth of water. I live in a place where I can find water fairly easily, and I have the ability to filter water, etc. So I can go get it if I need it. But if I get in that Pathfinder, and I'm back in the back, like Grouch's land, 1,500 acres in, and I don't pay attention, and I slide off in the ditch. And I've got to call for help. It might be 4, 5, 6 hours before help gets to me. Not that help ain't coming, but you got to find somebody that's got something that can help recover me, and then get them to me. 5, 6, 7 hours since I'm a hypoglycemic, I'm gonna need food.
Right.
I'm already in a stressful situation, so I carry MREs with it. And then I rotate those out. So I'm gonna buy this case, and I'm gonna label the date and all, and this is gonna stay sealed up. The case I've already got, that rotates into the camping food, the vehicle food. And then the food that's already in my vehicle food and I already got, that gets brought out and I eat it for lunch. I give it to somebody that's got kids and they want to eat an MRE or whatever. I'm constantly rotating my larder through so it don't get so far out of date.
If y'all will remember, back somewhere around number 18, we did a special on his camp box.
Yeah.
Well, that's the kind of stuff that you're also going to have to rotate through. But that sits in camp. If he's out on a day hike and has to spend the night on a day hike,
That's in a haversack.
this is this.
Yeah.
If he comes back around and gets back to camp, that just stays in the haversack, and he goes to his chuck box, and there it is.
Yeah.
There's supper. But you need, we were talking earlier about options besides this. Spam, Vienna sausages, crackers,
Packages of cheese sealed up.
packed sealed.
Short term, that's good for a weekend. Don't leave it in there a month.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that. Yeah.
You can also, when you buy it, it's got an expiration date on it. Pay attention. Pay attention to that expiration date. And you've also got other items in there like your macaronis, and you've got your what else? You got your canned soups, you got your dry soups, things of that nature. And don't forget your all-purpose paper. Those of you in scouting know what all-purpose paper is.
Yep, you're gonna need some of that. That can be used as an emergency fire starter, but it can be used for other things.
Paper towels.
And it makes sense if you've never bought something like this and you don't want to go this route. You want to just go ahead and like buy a box of oatmeal, buy a box of this, whatever, and take a Ziploc bag and make up your own. That's perfectly viable. But here are two rules you need to address. One, what season is it? If it's hot, it's stuff I can eat cold because I don't want to raise my core temperature. If it's winter, I need stuff I can heat up and a way to do it because I want to raise up my core temperature.
Not only that, but you want calories.
I want calories to keep me warm so I'm generating body heat.
Calories, and you want to stay hydrated. Because believe it or not, many people get into trouble in the wintertime from dehydration.
Yeah, you actually need more water in the Arctic than you do in the desert because that's how the body keeps warm. We circulate liquids around. And so, for example, with me, if we're going on a scout and it's January, what's going to be in my haversack is probably going to be a couple of packages of instant potatoes or something like that. I like potatoes better than do grits in that because I can do that in a canteen cup. I've demonstrated that many times of making camp taters, which I've recently talked about, and carrying that with me so I can just add water, throw it in there, heat it up, it instantly thickens up, it's going to stick to your ribs and give you a lot of calories.
Plus you can chop up the sausages or the
ham,
the Viennas, whatever you want to, into it.
Crumble up a jerky into the water and let it boil 5 minutes and rehydrate the jerky.
Yes.
You'll learn the difference between that pressed goo jerky and actual jerky. Because
the goo melts.
The goo melts and it don't do jack, but the real jerky, we take it and you tear it apart, you'll see grains in it. That's just a hunk of dehydrated meat. And a lot of times you'll see it as steak.
Yeah.
Instead, it'll say it'd be a hunk of jerky, but it'll say it's a steak. Well, that's just a thumb-sized hunk of meat that's been dehydrated. You put it in boiling water and boil it 10-15 minutes and it'll rehydrate and turn back to meat. See? And so I've crumbled that up in the water because the more you crumble it, the faster it's going to rehydrate. And just sit there and start boiling it. And then once it's about 3/4 of the way done, dump in instant rice. You know, and some sort of spice packet, stir it up, and that will stick to your ribs.
Which brings me to a thought. Beans, dry beans, and rice.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going, you can work with them and turn them into something that's good, or you can eat it just as is. But one of the things that I've got are 5-gallon cans of rice and beans. Because it's not going, I mean, what's the shelf life on rice? Forever?
Yeah.
When you do your beans, be sure that before you seal them, put them in the freezer for about 48 hours to kill whatever may be in there, whatever sort of small animals would be in there, and then bring them out and seal them up.
Yeah, because then it's just protein.
And it's just protein.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing about it. In the summertime, you've got to look at what your environment is and realize, be very aware of keeping your core temperature down as much as possible, because the two biggies are heat stroke and heat exhaustion. And when you look at the numbers of how many people got heat stroke and heat exhaustion right after lunch, where they come in a hurry, they wolf down this hot meal, they chug all this, and they go right back out in that 100-degree heat, and they never had time to cool down and digest, and they're dropping about 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock from heat stroke and exhaustion.
There's a reason Mama said take a rest after lunch.
Yeah, there's a reason that a lot of the Central and South America take a siesta every day, is to cool down and digest. And I have talked about that, of my typical way of maneuvering in the summertime heat is get up early. I know those of you that camp with me are shocked by that, because Blackie loves to just lay there and listen to camp till 8 or 9 in the morning, then I get up. But get up early. Don't even bother about eating. Have a quick grab, something I can gnaw on, and get going. Make some miles. This is the coolest part of the day. Make miles or start working on that project heavy. Then about 9 or 10, stop, eat some sort of meal or whatever. Pedal around doing stuff between 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock depending, and 3 or 4 o'clock, I shut down and just coast. I got my hammock up in a shady place, big broad leaves, and I cool off. The heat of the day, not the time to be doing stuff. After 4 o'clock, when the sun's got down at an angle and the temperature's still up, but you're not in that UV, I come back up, I do stuff. Then right at sundown, I've already got my camp set up and everything. Right at sundown is when I go down to the water source, and that's when I take my bath, and I'll take a rag and I'll wash the salt off of me to cool me off, wet my hair, bring my core temperature down. And then right after sundown is when I'm gonna eat my cooked meal, my big heavy meal, because all I'm doing now is just sitting by the fire and going to bed.
He brought out something interesting. Cooling down, taking the foot bath and cooling down. Probably 80 to 90% of the heat that your body loses goes out through the feet
For the head.
and out of the head. And now, those of us that radiate a lot of heat, you know, that's just a side effect. But 80 to 90% of your body heat will radiate out of your head and out of your feet. So
And
you need to take care of them.
Now, back when we were young, and it was the summer, and we were staying in the woods, and we'd go down and strip off and just get in the creek or get in the river during the heat of the day, that 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock, and you just see our heads sticking up out of water and be in that cool river. Today, we got a lot more gators than we had when we were young.
Yeah, that's true.
Because I can remember many times just coming into camp, which was on the riverbank. There was a swimming hole right there I knew well, and just walking up, tying up my pack, immediately stripping off, just walking off the bank, not even looking, and go bloosh down that 12-foot deep hole. And just today, that would be stupid, because you're liable to
It
land.
probably wasn't very smart back then, but
Well, you know, I mean, we didn't see a gator but maybe once every 2 or 3 months.
if that often.
If that often, they were not common. But since the 90s, the population has greatly improved. Until today, any kind of water, you just assume there's gators.
Yeah, if there's a farm pond close to a river, bet on a gator being in there somewhere.
Yeah. Even if you can see to the far side and this pond ain't 4 foot deep, get you a drink, get you a chair, get you a shady space, and sit there and watch the surface of the water. He can lay on the bottom 30 minutes.
Easy.
And then he's gonna come up and get air, and you'll be amazed. I had a good friend of mine that was, wanted me to come down there, and we were building a pier. And so we built the pier on land, and then we were gonna take his tractor, it's a floating pier, and push it out into the pond. And we was gonna put 4 steel posts in to hold the far end, so it's tethered on this end, and 2 posts on that end. There's a big 4x4 coming up, and put one on either side and clamp it. And I asked him when I got down there, because that pond is 3 acres, and I said, "You're sure there ain't no gators in it?" "No, there ain't no gator in it." "Okay." We got the pier built. We pushed it out in the water and let it float. And I said, "Leave it hooked to the tractor, and we're gonna eat lunch up here. And that way, if it sinks, it's still hooked to the tractor. We can pull it back up and figure out what we did wrong."
Yeah.
And he said,
And
"Okay."
those little white caps were supposed to stay in those blue
Something,
barrels.
you know, we thought it was all sealed up, but Murphy's Law, let's find out. So before we get it all built, and then tomorrow you come out here and the dock's bent in the middle because the center's filled up full of water and it's sunk.
Yeah.
You know, so there were 8 barrels. So let's do that. And he agreed, so we got it all hooked together and we pushed it out there and we went up there. And we're sitting there on the tailgate of his truck in the shade looking at the pond, and I looked at him and said, "You said there were no gators." "Yeah." 2 o'clock, look right yonder. And there was a head of a gator, about a 4-footer. And it was up on the surface probably 5 or 10 minutes, then she sunk back down. "You got a gator in here." He was gonna let his grandkids swim in that thing. That's why he's putting that pier out there for them to play on.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Now you gotta go talk to the game warden and come get a gator out of here. He said, it's 2 miles to any more water or creek or anything." "Uh-huh. You will build it, they will come." There was that.
Very true.
He wasn't a big one, but he was a gator, you know. And then the one at, what is that, lake on Rooker? No, Eck Lake.
Okay.
ECH, we call it Eck Lake. And they had about a 9-foot alligator, a female, we called her Susie. And I'd go out there in my canoe, and she'd be laying out there on the bank, sun, and she didn't care. She left you alone. There were warnings everywhere. There is an alligator in this water. Don't swim. And I was out there on my canoe fishing one day, and they were going to do a controlled burn all the way around the lake. And the guy come running up on the 4-wheeler, and where he's got the thing, the jet that sprays the stuff to start the fires behind him, and he said, "Are you going to be staying in the lake?" I went, "Yeah, why?" He said, "We're going to run 360 around the lake and set all this on fire. It'll burn for about 2 hours, but other than that, you should be fine, but we're not going to burn the road, and your car should be fine right yonder in the parking lot." I said, "Okay." So he took off and he ran around the edge of the line, blowing fire 10 yards in with that burning oil.
We've got one of those torches.
Yeah, blowing it in. So he went all the way around, so now all the woods is on fire and everything. And it's a pretty good sized lake. And so I looked up, and there was Susie, and she was about 100 yards out. And I kept fishing. I'm catching brim and stuff over here with the beetle span. And then I looked up, and she was like 25 yards out. And finally, when I turned back and looked, and she was like me to you off the side and looking at me, and I said, "Are you nervous, dear? It's okay." And I could tell she was not being aggressive, like, "I ain't seen this crap before. Can I just cuddle up next to you?" "Stay right there, Susie. You're fine." And she stayed beside my canoe for the next 2 hours. She didn't try to make any noise. She wasn't going for my fish. But you could tell it was like,
I'm not sure what's going on.
"I'm not sure, and I'm just going to cuddle up to you. Just stay right there, honey." And so she stayed me to you.
You know, you hear those stories. This is way off topic, but you hear those stories about Forest Service people who have elk come into camp and just lay down.
Yeah.
Or you know, predators come in and just sit down.
Yeah.
Because this fire's going on around them or something, and that's a safe spot, and they know it.
They just come in there and sit down. When I was at, dang, I can't call the name of it, but it's the Boy Scout camp up in Tennessee that I got my national certification to be a shooting sports director. And we're out here shooting skeet. And so you got like a 2-acre strip right here in front of us, think like a golf course. And we've got skeet throwers and we're busting skeet. And we had 40 white-tailed deer laying down and walking around downrange. We're busting the birds right over them and it's raining busted clay pigeons on them and they're just sitting there looking around. They're used to it.
Yeah.
So their favorite place to come hang out was the skeet range.
There used to be an old Tom Turkey that hung around Alaflo's shooting range too.
Yep, that one, I'll never forget that morning. We were up there on the shooting range and this young man, it was his turn. And you would take the shotgun with it breeched open. It was a pump 500 and 20 gauge and you'd step up to the line. And I tell you, get your feet like you want, you get the gun shoulder, and you'd bring the gun up and you'd level it, finger off the trigger, open breech. And then I would reach up and I would drop the shell in the breech and say, you're hot, and you'd close it and you'd bring the gun up and you'd call pull and then you'd shoot. And this young man was the first one up and he got up there and he's holding the gun. We got it locked in the rear, and I had just reached up and dropped the shell in it, and he went chunk, and this big Tom Turkey that would be a world-class trophy to anybody, long, thick beard, comes strutting out about 15 yards out of the tree line and went across right in front of us, not 20 yards out. Drumming.
An easy shot.
An easy shot, and here it is, you know, it's in June. It ain't turkey season. And I put my hand on his shoulder and I said, son, I'm sorry, you can't shoot it. It's turkey. It ain't turkey season. And he said, me and my daddy have hunted turkey for 3 years and I've never even seen one. And I'm standing here with a loaded shotgun looking at a turkey. Well, by luck, the young man that I had that was running the clay pigeon thrower had his cell phone, early cell phone, and took pictures. And he stood up and took a picture of that boy standing there looking. He ain't aiming at him, it's pointing down range, but it was in that direction, this big, huge Tom Turkey right out there. And he managed to get that thing framed by the end of the camp and gave it to him to give to his daddy. This young man stood here with a loaded shotgun and a big turkey walking right in front of him. Wow. I don't know how I'd have the confidence. You can just be mad at me later.
Yeah. We won't tell the game warden about
Woo,
that.
we won't tell the game warden about that. We're just glad we did all our stupid stuff before cell phones, because there ain't no evidence for us. But back to, okay, this, we're probably going to hang it up. But the whole idea of this was us talking to you. It's summertime, it's hot, okay? Plan your meals for your adventures around the idea of not raising your core temperature.
Right.
Be smart about it. Spread it out, you know, give yourself sufficient time to cool off after you've eaten. Take that siesta. Carry a little something in a haversack if you're going to be anywhere that if you did get separated, you're not going to get out quickly. So make sure you got you got water, you got at least one meal or something to nibble on, okay? The other thing is in your vehicle, now's the time to rotate. I rotate in May and I rotate in October. Is when I rotate the stuff out of my vehicles and put fresh stuff in. Like I said,
That's the same time you rotate your haversack.
at the same time I rotate my haversack. So now in my vehicle I got my summer set,
Yeah.
which means I've got a light pair of hiking boots, I've got shorts that I can put on, I've got a lighter t-shirt in there, plus my other gear. I pulled out the heavy sleeping bag and replaced it with just a Woobie. In fact, what I did, I've got the Ranger roll sitting there, but I also got a small one of them. They're not felt, but you know what I'm talking about, those real light little blankets like you pick up at Walmart. One of them. Again, it's sacrificable, but it's in there in case somebody's sick or whatever and they get the chills. I've got a blanket. If I come up on a deceased body, I got something to cover the body with while we're waiting for law enforcement to get there. You know, things like that. Same thing, the food that's in there is now actively rotated into my snacks, gonna eat it, whatever. And so I'm constantly, water the same way, constantly rotating, and then I'm buying a new case that's coming in that's gonna give me 16 meals, and those are going in the storage larder for in case things get bad. So at any time I've got 2 to 3 cases worth in rotation, see, to guarantee. And then, like I said, I've opened mine up, I put in oatmeal, grits, Another little snack, you know, I don't eat Tootsie Rolls, so if I see Tootsie Rolls in there, I'm gonna pull them out and replace them with something else. And a lot of them energy bars that are gravel with a little bit of honey on it that I don't eat, I pull them out and those go into the list, and wife loves to take them for a snack after lunch.
Sure.
You know,
Those make good trade items too.
they do, and so I can rotate stuff through. But anyway, guys, we greatly appreciate y'all watching, and there'll be more stuff. And do me a favor down in the comments, throw down any comments you got. Please hit that like button to help feed the algorithm. And if there's anything that think of you want us to cover, put it down there in the comments. We'll be glad to do it. Anything else, bro?
One quick extra. When you're putting your items together, make a list. Figure out what you can put in your container. Figure out what you don't. We did this a long way back in like 4, where we were talking about go bags, go cans for people.
Go bags.
You want one for every single person in the family. Today is the 20th day of May. 9 days from today's first day of hurricane season.
Yep.
So what you want to do is, if you, back last year when we did that, if you put you together a box, a go box for your family, go through there, check it.
Check the dates.
Put fresh in.
Rotate out the water.
Don't forget, you've got to have one for you, for your spouse, for your children. You want individual boxes for your children. Now, that box will be smaller, and if you've got 2 kids, you can put all their stuff in the same box. One thing that I pointed out, don't forget toys.
Some sort of distraction.
Some sort of distraction, because their whole world will, if you're having to use this, their whole world is upside down. And you need to have something to take their minds off of what's going on. So do that, okay? We tell you this because we care. You know, we've already got all this stuff done, all right? We want you to have it done too.
A friend of mine, what he did, because they lived down in Florida, they had half the hurricane evacuate. And their son was 10 years old. So he got one of the small clipboards and one of the little manila yellow pads to go onto it, and he got a pin for it, rigged it to it with string so he couldn't lose it. And he put a piece of tape on the clipboard, and I think the son's name, I want to believe it's Charlie. Charles, they call him Charlie. And they put down Charlie's job. Well, his job sitting in the back seat as they're evacuating is, if they say such and such on the radio, Dad will say, okay, Charlie, make a note, and Charlie's supposed to write it down. Now, Dad is really not going to need this.
But it keeps Charlie.
It keeps Charlie involved and immersed in what's going on, and he feels important and vital.
That's a good dad.
He's supposed to be listening to the radio with us. And if they come up with an alert or something, and the adults are talking, and you hear it, you say, Dad, alert, let me know. And so he feels like he's supposed to be doing something. Yeah. He's not just cargo, he's important. Right. You know, if Dad has to stop and get gas or whatever, he tells him, your job is you sit here, you look. If there's any ambulances or fire trucks coming by, I want you to tell me. Probably not going to happen, but it gives him a feeling of purpose.
He's important.
He's important. My dad did that to me whenever I was small and we were on the 18-wheeler. And we would pull up in a place, and he's going to leave me in the running 18-wheeler sitting there in park, but he's got to run in and get something, his bills or whatever. And he'd tell me, he said, okay, I want you to watch out the window, and I'm looking for a blue pickup truck with a white camper top. If that comes in, that's going to be such and such. It's all BS. I need to know it. So you watch for me, okay? Yeah, and I'd be sitting there watching. Instead of playing around in the cab, I'm watching. And so when Daddy gets back and says, did the truck show up? You know, I'd go, no, I'm sorry, it didn't show up. Okay, we'll try to catch it next time, and we'd go on. Every time we had to stop, Daddy had some little job for me. You know, either I got out and went with him, if he's going to be in there and we're going to be loading the trailer, he'd bring me in the loading dock and set me up on top of a box or something out of the way where I was safe, And he'd give me his pen and something, so I want you to count how many bales they put in. We got to keep it straight. And I had a job to put tick marks and count. Of course, they knew exactly how much, but it gave me a job.
Also, and I know we do this a lot where we just add a tail onto the show, but on average, if you're going to be doing this for an entire year, it takes 1,000 pounds of food per person for a year. So adjust accordingly.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the reason I talk about with me. This, if we're forced out, this is a guaranteed meal a day, and I'm going to forage for everything else. So no matter what, I'm only going to eat one of these a day because I'm going to try to find anywhere else. And if I get lucky and can get enough meals, well, then this don't get eaten. I'm going to push forward until I have to go back to that. And that's a half month guaranteed sitting there.
Also, when this gets out of your date, it's barter.
Yeah, trade it to somebody else.
Okay, if he shows up and he's got something that I need and he's hungry,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, I'll trade you my case of MREs for it.
Or even here, I'll trade you this for your axe.
Yeah. You're hungry enough, you'll do it. All right, guys. Till next time, I'm Blackie.
And Bear.
Wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.